Mars Battlegrounds has returned as the weekly featured Grandmaster, and today we have an updated guide for you guys that makes this Nightfall far easier than ever before. From cheesing mechanics to skipping entire waves of enemies and completely stun-locking bosses, this guide will showcase the best team comp, loadouts, and positioning strategies to make this GM as easy as possible for you and your fire team. If you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription is always appreciated. Now let's get into it. Starting with my recommended team comp, we went with the tried and true Well of Radiance, rocking the Cenotaph mask, one Invis Hunter with Orpheus rigs, and a Storm's Keep Arc Titan with Heart of Inmost Light to significantly improve our ad clear. Cenotaph ensures that your team is always topped off on ammo, which is nice in this GM specifically due to the volume of champions and mini-bosses that you'll need to deal with. This gives us an easy way to farm ammo, especially when you don't have access to the heavy crates until after most encounters are over. Tether is used to crowd control and feed your team orbs of power for chaining supers, which is especially strong in battleground content due to the sheer volume of enemies. It's also incredibly valuable in the boss room during the orb dunking phase, where Invis makes an otherwise risky part of the Nightfall extremely safe. The Titan has flexibility with the exotic that they choose to run, but Heart of Inmost Light ensures that you almost always have your barricade available to build bolt charge. Tip number 1 is all about our loadouts. As teased in the thumbnail, Levy's Breath absolutely destroys this Grandmaster. Its ability to stun lock bosses literally changes the way you can approach this GM and makes the most difficult parts of this Nightfall so much easier. It may seem like an odd choice due to the weekly surge, but trust me here, it is an absolute game changer. It also comes with intrinsic unstop, which really opens up the rest of your loadout. We went triple levies with rocket sidearms for anti-barrier, with a primary of your choice to help with ad clear. Your Cenotaph Warlock will need to rock a trace rifle to mark priority targets, which allows you to spam Levy's Breath like it's a primary weapon. In terms of armor mods, heavy ammo finders, scouts, and scavs are always important, and I highly recommend void loaders and surges to help boost Levy's Breath as well. To boost it even further, you can use things like Volatile Marksman and Maligned Harvest from the artifact to spread volatile rounds and weaken, as well as Defibrillating Blast to proc bolt charge every time you stun a champion. Tip number 2 takes us to the start of the Nightfall, and you're gonna need to fight your primal urge to kill the enemies at the start of the strike. Funny enough, if you leave these enemies alive and beeline it straight to the C cap point, you can actually break the hive infestation and cap the point without a single enemy or champion spawning in. And as long as you stay over in this area, the enemies from the other cap points won't really aggro you, and the point will capture itself on its own. And no, this has no impact on your platinum rewards. You can then position yourself on this platform to spawn kill the hive mini-boss that spawns when the C cap point reaches roughly 90% capture progress. At which point you can turn around and use Levy's Breath to stun lock and kill this boss in its spawn animation. Now we'll head back towards spawn and clear out the enemies surrounding the B cap point. This will help make the initial wave of ads more manageable, as it staggers the next ad spawn that includes both a barrier and unstoppable champion. Feel free to wait until your Warlock has their Well of Radiance before breaking the Hive Corruption, which will make this part significantly easier. A barrier and unstop will spawn to your far right, so make sure to tag them for ammo, then use Levy's Breath to absolutely destroy them. Lastly, we'll head to the A cap point and clear the surrounding enemies once again, then have your teammates head towards the spawn door of the Death Tongue Acolyte. This enemy will spawn as soon as you break the hive seal, and positioning your teammates here allows you to spawn kill it before it can open the Shrieker. Once dead, make your way over to this rooftop and drop a well overlooking the surrounding ads. 2 unstoppable champions will spawn directly behind you and jump down to this low ground, where you'll be in a perfect position to tag and kill them. Just be aware of enemies that can sneak up behind you from time to time, and you'll be through this encounter no problem. The ghost encounter is pretty straightforward, but tip number 3 is all about positioning and how to properly chain your supers. Start by scanning your ghost, then use this wall for cover. This spot is fantastic because it has great sight lines on all enemy spawn points, and the enemies tend to funnel directly towards you in a very predictable fashion. The first champion will spawn when the capture progress reaches 25%, and Levy's Breath will basically spawn kill it each time. Feel free to use your well when you see large groups of enemies start to spawn in, and use your tether to not only control the adds, but help feed your warlock their next well in no time. These supers paired with Bolt Charge will clear these rooms with ease, and once the capture progress reaches 100%, we're moving on to the laser transition zone. This area can be a bit sketchy as the detection timer is actually tied to your frame rate. So tip number 4 is all about how you can make this area significantly easier on you and your fire team. For whatever reason, high frame rate causes the timer to count down much faster, while locking your frame rate to 60 FPS makes it count down significantly slower, as you can see in this side-by-side comparison. So before moving forward, simply lock your frame rate to help you cross these detection zones with a much more lenient timer, then unlock your frame rate when you've reached the end. Oh, and as a nice little bonus tip, you can actually jump up on this pipe and skip a huge portion of the jumping puzzle as well. Tip number 5 is a quick one, but worth noting nonetheless. When you reach the vault before the boss room, avoid going left as it has several yellow bar enemies protecting the laser core. The other two have no enemies guarding them whatsoever, and you can actually break the seal to the boss room with just 2 cores anyway, so use the right and middle cores that have no enemies defending them to break this door with ease. Just make sure you have one person controlling the adds that spawn outside, while your other 2 teammates grab the cores to open the door. The 6th and final tip is all about how you can best navigate the boss room. First off, since we get our supers back when we start the encounter, I highly recommend pre-placing a well and tether before the boss fight begins. This gives you a free debuff and safety from the boss, and allows you to save your next set of supers for when you truly need them. I like to well at the back of the arena, and team shot the boss with Levy's Breath to repeatedly stun him. He can disappear from time to time, but as long as you're ready to shoot the boss when he comes out of invisibility, you'll instantly stun lock him again. Once the boss hits the 50% health gate, he'll gain an immunity shield and move at a drastically reduced speed. It is at this point that 2 champions will spawn at the center of the arena. So to avoid the boss and break sightlines from these champions, I recommend regrouping at the back right hand side of the room, and if you have your well, feel free to use it here. And if not, simply play cover and wait for the unstop to push towards you. Be sure you have levies ready to stun it, and mark the champ to restock on ammo. There will also be a barrier champion hanging out near the deposit that is much easier to deal with. Once dead, you'll want to start killing the shielded knights and use your invis hunter to dunk the cores safely in the center of the room. Do this 5 times and the boss will become damageable once more, at which point you can throw down a well, nuke the boss, and the Mars Battlegrounds Grandmaster is a GG. If you found this guide useful, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated, and you can always catch me live over at twitch.tv/above, where I'll be doing GM helps all week long. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!